Hello, my name is Michelle Sherman, transformational coach and founder of the VAST Institute.
Hello, my name is Michelle Purnell Hepburn, and I currently serve as Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Director at the Seattle Foundation. And
We
are
the,
Curly Girls.
yes, we are the Curly Girls. We are your hosts today for a chat about belonging and how powerful you are on the Curly Girls Guide to Belonging.
Our mission at the Curly Girls is to joyfully generate enthusiasm about how beautiful life is and how we all are, with anecdotes, techniques, and encouragement as two curly girls who've seen a lot.
I would say so.
We will also demonstrate that when we belong to ourselves, we need not look outside ourselves for validation for what is already wonderful within us.
Oh, Michelle, I love the way you say that. Thank you. You know, it's so great to work with you on Curly Girls, offering perspective, inspiration, practical tools, ways to feel included, ways to deal with bullying, ways to make people understand how being different is being different. It's wonderful, and there are ways to be different together in a compassionate and loving manner. Just for the folks who are joining us today, let me give them a little recap of what we've done thus far. We've talked about creativity, we've talked about worthiness, and today's episode is about belonging. What we have discovered so far in past episodes is that we're creator beings at the core, and we're each wonderful in our own way. And as you pointed out so wonderfully in the worthiness episode, Michelle, it's available. We just have to start sitting down and looking for how wonderful we are. Today, we're going to take a closer look at belonging. Welcome, and thank you for being with us today. Michelle, you have something really precious that you want to share.
I do. I would like to start by reading a poem from John O'Donohue. And I would appreciate, because I know you also have a poem on belonging, I would really appreciate if you would share that with us as well.
A little bit later.
A little bit later. So, from John O'Donohue, may you listen to your longing to be free. May the frames of your belonging be generous enough for your dreams. May you arise each day with a voice of blessing whispering in your heart. May you find harmony between your soul and your life. May the sanctuary of your soul never become haunted. May you know the eternal longing that lives at the heart of time. May there be kindness in your gaze when you look within. May you never place walls between the light and yourself. May you allow the wild beauty of the invisible world to gather you, mind you, and embrace you in belonging.
Thank you, Michelle. That was exquisite. I so appreciate it. I especially enjoyed hearing about the power of kindness. One of the things that we so incorporate into any of our work at VAST is kind-hearted power, and how that really is quite effective, even though it may be, to some people, a little bit of a paradox. So I really enjoy hearing about the belonging and kindness and inclusion. It's just a beautiful affirmation. Well, today, you and I talked about what we wanted to cover. There were so many great things that we could talk about today. And in our chats and briefings and research, we decided we were going to talk about what is belonging. How do we push it away? I don't know about you, but I'm not always feeling like I belong. We're going to share anecdotes and insights and tools. And then how can we embrace it? How can we experience it now in our own humble way, sharing these insights and encouraging people to find their own? I would love to ask you, In your estimation, what is belonging? What is the experience of belonging? I know for myself, just individuals can belong to a lot of different things. It's, do I belong to the community? Do I belong to the planet? Do I belong to my religion? Do I belong to my synagogue or my church? Do I belong to my friends, my soccer team? Do I belong to the PTA? There's so many places to belong. And we have talked about insight. So I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on belonging and what you identify that as being.
When I belong, I am loved. I feel the love and support, not only from my community, which of course includes my family, but also I feel the love and support, and dare I say, acceptance of myself.
Well, we talked about self wisdom, self acceptance, and self cherishment. Belonging, it's an experience, and the experience is enhanced and allowed to happen more gracefully when we belong to ourselves first. That's that's the hardest part for me. I don't know about you, but being kind to other people, being thoughtful of other people, sometimes I leave myself last. Sometimes I'm not aware that self-cherishment, self-appreciation, self-wisdom, self-awareness, self-care is the way to get the job done. And belonging is part of that.
Right, right. I think also part of belonging is trusting yourself, trusting that you are going to make the right decision, trusting that that person is going to come through, trusting that you're going to know what to do, that the universe is going to support you in that.
And one of the best parts of understanding that clarity, because at Vast we talk about clarity, confidence, and imagination. When I'm thinking or working with people about belonging, which is kind of a human issue, it's knowing what I belong to can sometimes be difficult. Because if I belong to a particular, let's say I belong to the Play-Doh get together after work club, and we use Play-Doh to become leadership geniuses. There might be 50 people there who love Play-Doh for business purposes, but there may not be people there who would want to meet my pets. There may be people there who might not enjoy coming and visiting me at the water. There are all sorts of reasons why people connect and don't connect and belong and don't belong. And what I have found over the years, and what is most important, is understanding that not necessarily knowing what I belong to, but knowing what I belong with. Who are the people who share my values? And they show up all over the place. That's why we're so interconnected. The dry cleaner may be the person who reads the language that I'm secretly studying so I can go on a trip to Europe. Uh, and so we may belong in the club of folks who are really excited. But I find that it's not necessarily being part of a defined group where we feel we belong or a defined set of people. It's when we share the values, as you had spoken about, us talking about kind-hearted power, Mr. O'Donoghue's poem about feeling accepted and loved and cherished. It's those experiences, not the external indicators, that need to be understood and commanded by our sweet little tender hearts that deserve to be treated so well.
Yes. I will say, when I feel that I belong and I have that sense of support from myself first, and my community, I can do anything. When we have people that believe in us, we can do anything, even if we make mistakes. Even not if, when we make mistakes. That to me is just like a warm hug. It's like, okay, we missed the mark here, and I still believe in you.
Yes, it is, Michelle. That's part of the authenticity. The authenticity and the ability to be comfortable with yourself. Belonging is when I'm comfortable with who I am. I've always been someone who has been a little seen as a little different, a little too enthusiastic, a little too passionate, a little bit too optimistic, a little bit too dot, dot, dot. And after all of this time on the planet, I've had to allow myself to be nice instead of being seen as foolish, to belong and to fight for the right to be authentic. That's what you're talking about. So when you're part of a group and you feel like you're belonging, you can make mistakes. You can admit that you don't know everything. You can also say, hey, you know what, Michelle? I didn't remember. I'm so embarrassed. Give me a break. Let's try it again next week. Because twice a year, I forget an appointment. Twice a year. 2 appointments out of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. So belonging is a state of mind, and also, as you're saying, an emotional presence, like an ability to do your best work because you feel you're part of something larger.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Acceptance of self is it's giving yourself a hug. The self-cherishment that you truly desire and you truly deserve. It's what this world and each individual in this world needs.
it's about knowing who are your like-minded, like-hearted folk and feeling comfortable so you can be authentic and give your very best to a project, to a business, to a family. I love it. So let me ask you a couple things here because we want to, and we will be doing future episodes on so many of these topics. We've gotten some very positive response, and we want to thank those people who are listening, who are Curly Girls or honorary Curly Girls. Everyone is welcomed. We're about inclusion, and we're also about learning together. Let me ask you, Michelle, a little bit about what do you think pushes it away, because we all want to belong. We all want to be comfortable with ourselves. We want to be authentic. We want to be accepting, as you say, of ourselves. Authenticity and self-wisdom is a platform upon which you can tap dance your life. What do you think we do unintentionally, or what do you think are some of the obstacles in our normal lives that you've perceived as a DEI proponent in your world, in your professional, your personal life?
Criticize each other, criticize ourselves, and criticize each other. Try to make yourself better than or think yourself worse than. Those are surefire ways of pushing belonging away.
Right. So comparing yourself, and you and I've talked about the scarcity philosophy underneath exclusion, underneath Mean Girls. And you and I've had a couple of experiences. We'll talk about those anecdotes in just a minute. But that when we've had experiences, it's because someone was comparing themselves to us instead of seeing themselves as a wonderful boss and us as a wonderful first in command. And it's amazing how that win-lose philosophy, there's not enough, we all have to like scramble and compete. The right people show up for the right times for the right reasons, and that there's plenty of great business, great people. I've had to have that attitude, having my own business for a long time, that there will be new clients and new opportunities when things have completed and clients have moved on and we've completed projects. And so it's always been a really important part of my business model is to believe that There's a lot of great business for all of us. And I don't compete with anyone. I just let people know what I'm up to, that the Vast Institute, is sincere in its desire to find people who want what we have to offer, the clarity, the confidence, the imagination, and so on. What do you think about that?
I have been faced with this so many times in my life, and I have chosen to believe that there's plenty. The pie just grows and grows and grows and grows, which means what I do my best is to believe in abundance. There is plenty to go around, and that if I want X and you want X, we can both have X. And I want the listeners to truly just think about, what would your life be like if you truly believed in abundance? I can have or create what I want. And I don't have to put someone else down. When I'm ready for it, whatever it is, it will be there.
Yes. And that takes having examples and mentors, which is why I want to really, truly say that the people who allow for us to believe in abundance, who give us those first glimpses that we're worthwhile, we are able, we can make things happen, we don't have to be like anybody else, and we're still a smash success. I want to put a shout out to all those mentors and coaches and managers and teachers and parents and friends and family who are that for other people.
And let me put a shout out to you in that. Make sure that you know that you're in that list for me.
Thank you, sweetie. You too. That's wonderful. So we push it away because I think we're made to be afraid of not doing it right. So one of the things that I've noticed in my life and in my growth as an individual and as a professional is that the more comfortable I am with all of me, the more comfortable everybody else is. And so sometimes belonging is not, you can't really put your finger on it. You can't always understand why you feel like you belong to that group at the coffee shop on Thursday mornings at 6 a.m. that you don't really fully know anything about them except their first names, but you love it. And you feel like, oh, we were talking jazz that day. Whereas you go to the office and you're sitting there and, with a couple of your colleagues feeling like, I can't even talk to these people, and so being able to be comfortable with yourself and feeling like that abundance is there is just a wonderful reminder, Michelle, that we have such power to improve the quality of our lives when we're able to find the time, the energy, and the optimism to make it happen. I'd love to hear about one of your experiences that you'd like to share with us, with myself and the listeners, about something that really highlights your experience of belonging.
Mine's a little bit more personal, and I'm sure that many of our listeners will understand, is accepting my curly hair. When I was growing up, straight hair was it. It had to be straight. It takes an incredible amount of effort, an incredible amount of chemicals to make my hair straight.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived with that for decades.
Excuse me, Michelle, could you clarify for those of us who might not know exactly what kind of chemicals?
We're talking about lye. We're talking about putting a chemical that will change the molecular structure of your hair, will burn your scalp to look a certain way, which is not the way that God made me. Many many people who have curly hair, who look like me, have gone through this horrible experience on a regular basis. And for me, it took what some would say is a tragedy, what some would say is a growth moment, to accept, I pay thousands of dollars a year to put chemicals on my scalp that can also damage my hair. And then over the course of weeks, wash my hair, blow it dry, and then use a curling iron. Why am I doing that? And I am grateful that now I accept the gift that God has given me, which is a very full head of curly hair.
Beautiful colored chocolate. It's just gorgeous. I love your curls. And I have a picture of you when we first met, and you were working for a different organization, which had very, very conventional dress code. And your hair was kind of trimmed back to a beautiful afro. And now it's natural, and I think it's so beautiful. I mean, I just love what you've done with it.
Thank you.
But my question to you is, do you see a change in the celebration of people and their hair?
I believe that it's both, Michelle. There's a lot more acceptance, and there's still a long way to go. California in 2020 just passed a law. I cannot believe that needed to happen. Passed a law that Black people who normally have very curly hair
Mm-hmm.
could wear their hair the way they wanted in a professional setting.
Mm-hmm.
I was absolutely dumbfounded that even needed to happen. I also did not know, but recently read that in the 1800s, more than likely the early 1800s, that there was a law passed in the South, which state I do not remember, that said that African American women had to cover their heads. This had to do with our hair is different.
Share with me a little bit about how letting your hair go natural really affected you, impacted you. That courageous choice.
It was a choice to take another step into being fully myself. And I am still smiling about how much more I am accepted. I am accepted by others because I am accepting myself. And so I relish my hair. It is something that is.
I see something pretty in it today. What is that? A beautiful little clip?
But yes, there's normally something pretty.
Yeah.
And I just have fun with it instead of trying to hide it or change it or make it presentable. I style it for me.
Beautiful. So let me just share one thing. When I was a little kid, I grew up in Brooklyn, and in Brooklyn, everybody was different. Everybody got along, and everybody knew where they belonged, and everybody got together, and we mixed it up a lot. I moved to South Carolina when I was about 7 for a few months, And it was a completely different culture. Everybody stayed to themselves. Every neighborhood was its own little enclave, whether it was religious or ethnic, but people stayed to themselves. Well, I was there and I went to play with one of my little friends who's part of our enclave. And I was told I couldn't play with her because I had been seen talking with someone who is African American, and that particular group of people were not okay with my friendship with a little African American girl at the toy store. And so here I was, supposedly belonging to this group of people. I was there in this enclave in this foreign city, and I didn't belong. I belonged with that little African American girl with her family. I mean, my family was sweet about the whole thing, but it was a shock to me. And I knew what was going on some level, that the way I showed up wasn't okay because nobody would explain to me. My mom was brilliant. She, if I had mentioned this before, forgive me for repeating it, but I just love, she said, people, I asked her what had happened. Why couldn't I be friends with these people? Why? Because I thought I belonged to this group of people. And I was told by my mom, may she rest in peace, Selma, she said, not everybody is comfortable with how friendly you are, but you're friendly and you're a good human being. You're fine. You did nothing. You're wonderful. Be you. Ignore it. Forget it. She wouldn't even explain it to me. And I thought, okay, you belong, you don't belong. You're supposed to follow the rules, but you don't follow the rules. So belonging is about finding your own kind. And to find your own kind, you have to know who you are first.
Yes.
Thank you. I just was so excited to share a little bit about that. So, what would you suggest, Michelle? In the time we have left, let's talk to our listeners this episode about what they can do. I know we've sprinkled it in, but anything that comes to mind that we just want to make sure our listeners know is available to them right now.
Yes, we've talked about acceptance of ourselves. We've talked about the pie always grows, so living in abundance, or at least thinking in abundance. And I would like to bring up a word that many people are afraid of. And that word is no. And what I mean by that is setting boundaries. Setting boundaries of what works for you, and especially communicating what does not work for you. And no is a very spiritual word. Why would I say that? No is a very spiritual word because once you say it, energy shifts and you no longer have to think about it any longer. As compared to the, well, maybe I'll try, then that energy has to continue and continue
Right.
and continue. So the ability to say no respectfully, quietly, so that people, KNOW, know where you stand.
I love that.
To also realize that the most excellent people in the world make mistakes.
Mhm.
Allow yourself to be human, and that a mistake is not the end of life, the end of the world. To know that and surround yourself with people who allow you to make mistakes and yet still believe in you.
Yes, people who celebrate your quirks as well as your strengths, as well as your beauty, as well as your momentary irritations.
Yes. Be happy for others' success. When you live in an abundant world, you can be happy when someone succeeds. And all that means is yours is coming. So the more I celebrate someone else's success, the more energy there is for my success to be on its way.
Mm-hmm.
And When I accept and I belong to myself, there is no reason to put anyone else down.
Or compare myself to other people. We're each wonderful in our own wholeness.
Yes.
Ah, brilliant, Michelle. Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to address a couple things that you brought up, the no and the boundaries, the authenticity, all of that. For folks who are looking for some support with that, we have two resources that I would highly recommend advanced. One is Kindling the Flame, which is about how to stay optimistic and practical while you're working through clarifying who you are. You know, our brain chemistry is it's invisible, but it's there, and we can support ourselves, as Michelle said, to see a more abundant world through kindling the flame and cognitive replenishment and practical optimism. And then also our healthy relationship workbook talks about uh, talks about value systems, so you can do a tune-up on knowing where you are right now in your value system, and then how to be in right relationship to the people around you. In working with you, it's such a pleasure because I'm always thinking of how to be more inclusionary in ways that I'm not aware of, growing and growing and growing and growing in my ability to see my own bigotry or limitations or sense of false superiority versus another human being. And and so, you know, the whole theme about not comparing ourselves, accepting ourselves, seeing the beauty in each of us, that's really near and dear to my heart. And one of the things I would like to say to our listeners and remind myself and say in our hearts, I know we've discussed this, is that, you know, where do we belong? Okay. Every morning I wake up and I know I belong to the human family on this planet, whether I like it or not. But we're part of the human family, so you do belong. Whether you feel it or not, you do belong. And I just want to stress for those people who are working on sensing a greater experience of belonging, you do already belong, whether you experience it or not. It is. It's just my humble opinion to this human family. And that what is going on in the world as we are working on seeing each other for the first time, listening to each other's stories, loving each other through the pain, the grief, the suffering, the past sense of injustice and cruelty is our ability to come together and learn how to be a human family on this planet. This is the messy part. And it's kind of like our curls, Michelle. They're there, whether we acknowledge it or not. So we belong whether we acknowledge it or not. We belong to the human family. Everything fits together so beautifully. The self awareness, not being perfect, the saying, hey, I made a mistake, Michelle, is that okay? And so, with all that in mind, I just want to thank you very much for creating a sense of belonging with you and me and Curly Girls and all of our listeners. Um,
Would you share your poem?
Oh, thank you very much. I will share my poem from, and this is on our website, Walking Flower, Blossoming of Consciousness, first edition. And the name of the poem is Belonging. I belong with you. I know so. It was told me in a dream. And when that truth revealed itself, my most ancient heart became serene. My center, it felt peaceful as I heard this truth be spoken. For until that moment precious, the spokes of this pure heart felt incomplete and broken. The thought of being yours and belonging for one brief measure brought into my heart's deepest core a joy and fearfulness beyond all pleasure. For I have never belonged to another from the passage of my birth, and try as I may to give of myself, a complete connection still did thirst. But now I know the feeling of being whole, profound, and complete. as I discover the balance of my soul resides within the form that dwells from the top of your head to the soles of your feet. The best part about belonging, Michelle, is that when you belong, you feel connected, you can see the beauty and share it. So, one of the things about belonging is a quick and easy way to do that is to share what's good, point out what's beautiful, tell the folks around you a good story, have a happy, clean joke, or a slightly naughty one if you prefer. But there are ways of creating belonging on the bank line, ways of creating belonging when some mother is trying to get her little child into a car seat. There are ways of belonging when your executive vice president in charge of the universe stumbles and you make sure that you cover for them because nobody deserves to be embarrassed or humiliated publicly. We all belong to each other. And the sooner we figure that out, the more fun it'll be. Any last thoughts for today, Michelle?
Yes, it was a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to do these podcasts. Thank you, Michelle.
Yes, and we will be working on future episodes. Stay tuned as we reveal the Curly Girl's Guide to Belonging. So what I want to do is, Michelle, thank you so much for your wisdom, your kindness, your sweetness, your enthusiasm, your beauty, and of course, your brilliance. And I want to thank our listeners as well. Please know that the Vast Institute is a place where you can find topics and podcasts and blogs. And we'd like to hear what you think about the Curly Girl so we can plan future episodes. If you're an honorary curly girl, if you're a real curly girl, we'd love to see a picture of your curly hair. We'd love to hear about what you're thinking, and also know that we're with you. And each day we're moving forward, believing in each other. Okay. Until we see you at our next episode, a huge and appreciative thank you to Michelle Purnell Hepburn and her work at the Seattle Foundation and many other areas. Please explore the vast library of content and look at our marketplace. We do class events, keynotes, and of course, one-on-one transformational coaching. Thank you, be well, and see you soon on the Curly Girl's Guide to Belonging.